Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single week and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome to episode 9 of Tiny Talks. I am beyond excited to chat with you all today about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and I think something that we're all going to be able to relate to in at least some capacity. And so basically for today, I really wanted to talk a little bit about understanding anxiety. What the heck anxiety is, where it comes from, why we have it, how trauma and experiences can really heighten our anxiety. I hope to give you an understanding of some things that folks with anxiety might be facing on a day-to-day basis that can be really confusing and foreign to someone who's maybe never experienced it before. And so I really just wanted to start off with acknowledging everything that's going on in the world right now. No matter how the current situation of COVID has affected you, I can guarantee you on one surface or another, your body has absorbed at least some of the anxiousness that comes with it. And if you can remember back to my episode about our window of tolerance, our body and our amygdala, which is our body's alarm system, is always looking for threats. And threats could be anything from a fire to someone breaking into your home to burning yourself on the stove by accident. Right? Threats can be absolutely anything and everything. But the thing about COVID, you guys, is that we can't actually see it. And therefore, it's the media and things that we read and things that we're told that fills our mind and absorbs and controls our view of what that looks like. And so when our body can't tangibly see something, our body just starts to view everything and everything as a potential threat, which in and of itself can heighten our anxiety. So I just wanted to say that if you are feeling more anxious than you ever have, just know that it's okay and it is normal. Doing check-ins with ourselves, doing deep breathing, giving ourselves those daily necessities of just hydrating, eating some food if you can, maybe getting outside, moving your body. But know that it's okay. We are living through very confusing, tough times. And whether we want to acknowledge that for ourselves, it is real, it is out there, and it is affecting all of us differently. And so I really wanted to share about this podcast because I am someone who has suffered with anxiety for pretty much my whole life, but it has definitely increased in the last few months. And so this episode is really tailored towards folks that maybe don't really know what anxiety feels like, but kind of want to have an understanding of how to support maybe someone in your life that has anxiety. Or maybe if you are someone who deals with it on a day-to-day basis, hopefully this just helps you feel less alone and know that it is 100% normal and your body's way of trying to keep you safe. And the more that we can acknowledge that for ourselves, that our body is always just trying to do what it thinks is best for us in every single situation. And so my first point on here that I wanted to talk about surrounding anxiety is just that those of us who deal with it on a daily basis, we don't always know what our triggers are. And basically, to kind of preface what a trigger is, it's basically something that happens reflected off of our 5 senses. So either something we see, something we smell, something we taste, something we hear, or something we touch can potentially trigger something. And so to kind of make it tangible for everybody, if you think of, popcorn, you often associate that with the movie theater. Or you think of chocolate chip cookies, maybe you think of your grandma, right? You can attach those two things together. And so now basically, let's say you're at the movie theater eating popcorn and something traumatic happens. Let's say somebody, armed robber comes in or something like that and absolutely overwhelms your body, which is the definition of trauma. It's an event that overwhelms one's ability to cope. Your mind might now associate the smell of popcorn with that event. So now every time you would smell popcorn, you would maybe think of that one time at the movie theater that this extremely scary thing happened. And so that's exactly what a trigger is. Again, it's one of those 5 senses that triggers into it. And so Someone who suffers with anxiety might get triggered just in the run of the day, but not really know why or where it came from. It could be the smell of a cologne of somebody walking by that is potentially triggered to an ex-partner or an abuser, right? It could be driving in your vehicle and someone slamming on their horn. Maybe that's potentially startled you before, right? Somebody talking about COVID, that in and of itself can just trigger us and trigger our fear response. And so to ask someone who has chronic anxiety, or even just someone experiencing anxiety, why are you so anxious? Sometimes it's just as simple as, we don't know why. Sometimes it's really, really hard to pinpoint why we're triggered or where it comes from. And the most encouraging thing that I encourage you to do in those moments is just to find compassion that someone who is dealing with anxiety is likely being harder on themselves than you might imagine. If someone's constantly asking, what's wrong? Why are you feeling this way? Did I do something? What's going on? It can start to feel really, really shameful and cause you to dig really deep to figure out what's wrong. And that's the thing with shame, you guys, is it comes in to protect us. It protects our ego, it protects ourself. And so when that happens, if you are supporting someone who has anxiety, I encourage you to just ask them what they're needing in that moment. Giving them some time to calm down, allowing their nervous system to come back to its homeostasis. Maybe offering to do some deep breathing with them, maybe getting them a glass of water, and just sitting in that moment. The next point that I have on here is that anxiety makes us worry a lot, right? Anxiety is basically unforeseen worry about the future, where depression is basically dwelling or stressing about things that have happened in the past. And so anxiety almost 100% of the time comes from what we're thinking about. And oftentimes we don't even know the things that we're thinking about until we bring awareness to it. And so if we're feeling that way and someone were to say, just don't worry about it, like it's fine, it's going to pass, it's all good, that can seem very, very impossible, especially when your whole body is reacting in a way of it feeling very real in that moment. And that is the thing about our fight, flight, and freeze, you guys, is if we are super anxious, one of our survival instincts is likely kicked in. And so our body is trying to protect us, whether it gets defensive, so it can sometimes come across as irritating and lashing out in anger. Or the opposite, it can come across as someone not saying anything, appearing very numb, having little words, right? It affects all of us so differently depending on the situation, our environment, where we are, who we're with, etc. And so in those moments, I just encourage you guys to not say, don't worry. Again, just sitting there and supporting and asking what you can do. And that's going to be a large theme for how to support someone with anxiety, is not trying to figure it out. We always have this tendency and this reaction to want to take away someone's pain and to just fix the issue. But the thing about anxiety is the more that we can calm it down and catch ourselves when we're feeling anxious, the more we can actually lower our mind and retrain our mind that it doesn't have to worry about that thing anymore. The smell of popcorn may have hurt us one time, but it's not going to hurt us all the time. But that takes time to lower that down and to retrain our body to do so. The next thing that I have on here that I wanted to chat about, which really ties into the fight, flight, freeze, which is basically physical symptoms. So physical symptoms of anxiety can feel really, really real. And so that can be different things from heart palpitations to dizziness, to stomach issues, to not wanting to eat, pushing away, fainting, lashing out. Again, these are all things that lie in our body. Physical reactions, and that is why, you guys, mental health really needs to be looked at the exact same as any other kind of injury that we have. You scrape yourself, you put a Band-Aid on it, you can physically see it. But for some reason, when it's something going on in our mind, it's viewed at as so differently. But we are needing all the same things in that moment, which is love, tender care, patience, validated, right? So if someone is feeling physically unwell due to anxiety, Some tips that I have is taking some deep breaths, which sounds so easy to do, but can be really, really hard in the midst of anxiety. But if you can get yourself to take 6 intentional deep breaths, using some essential oils, calming your nervous system, feeling whatever it is, maybe you sit yourself down, noticing what you're sitting on, how is it supporting you? Looking around your room, what are some things you can see right now? How do they make you feel? Coming back to the present moment as much as possible when we are feeling physically affected by anxiety, because it is real. I know the feeling, and if you are feeling that way, just know that it is okay and it is normal, right? The last one that I have on here, which is something very near and dear to my heart, but it's that anxiety doesn't mean weakness. Our body is trying to protect us. And so I know for a lot of folks, even just COVID aside, sometimes we can go through experiences that cause us to have anxiety, and we often get so frustrated of, I didn't have anxiety before, why do I have it now? Again, that comes back to our fight, flight, and freeze, and our mind doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is to protect us and to keep you safe. And so the saying of anxiety means weakness actually couldn't be further from the truth. Because if you are feeling something and you are feeling anxious about something, that is because you as a human being have lived through something that has caused your body to be overwhelmed. And if you are feeling anxiety, that is permission that you made it through that thing that you maybe thought that you wouldn't. And your body remembers that. And it doesn't ever want you to feel that way again. And so what does it do? It kicks in your survival instincts to try to keep you safe of, okay, this worked last time, let's try it again and see what happens. And the thing about anxiety, you guys, is sometimes we can get it turned on. We can get stuck in one of our survival states. So we could be living completely in fight. We could be living completely in flee, right? Completely in freeze. We can be stuck that way. And that's why it's so important to speak to a mental health professional if you've been feeling in a rut for a long time. Checking in with yourself every single day, grounding yourself, practicing mindfulness. I know it sounds so simple to do, but I can guarantee you that it is hard work. But with consistency, you can overcome and just lower those thoughts of anxiety. And those thoughts and feelings might still be there. But each time that we can lower those triggers, catch ourselves in a trigger, figure out what they are, find those things that work for us to feel grounded, each time it starts to affect us a little bit less and a little bit less. So I just want you to know that if you are suffering with anxiety to a severe aspect, know that you are not alone at all in any way, shape, or form. Anxiety and depression affects over half of the population. It needs to be talked about. It needs to lower the stigma that surrounds it. We need to be kinder to each other and support that we are all going through a lot of stuff right now. The world is heavy, but we can find those good things. We can take care of ourselves. We can focus on what we have control over. I just want to thank you guys so much for listening. I truly hope that this helps shed a little bit of light on anxiety, help you feel a little less alone. Know that you are worthy to go speak to someone if you are feeling in need of that. I cannot wait to talk to you guys next week, and I hope you have the best day ever. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. If you're looking to connect, you can find me on Instagram at JessieBrown13. I look forward to chatting with you all next week.